We are back on Big Board Sports. Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado on a Tuesday morning. It looks like the Giants are set to offer Pat Shurmur the head coaching position to replace Ben McAdoo. It has been a strange weekend with guys that you thought may be heading to the Giants, now not heading to the Giants, going elsewhere, and now you land on Pat Shurmur. Covering the team is Paul Schwartz, as always, with the New York Post, and joins us here this morning on Big Board Sports. Good morning, Paul.
Roger, Chris, how you guys doing? But let's not say hire or offer because, of course, we know the NFL rules prohibit, right? Capital
Right.
P, teams from doing that with these candidates who are still coaching. So there's some discussion that maybe perhaps sometimes down the road, Pat Shurmur and the Giants might get together again, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, are you convinced that this is the guy, or is there still a window here that he goes to Arizona?
No, I'm convinced he's the guy. I mean, I'm just trying to. In case there are any lawyers listening, and they're going to jump on the Giants. He's the guy. Just like Patricia's the guy for Detroit. But this was let's face it. These guys were coming off the board. Not off the big board, but off the board, and the Giants couldn't wait. The time has passed in the NFL now when you can just sit back and say, okay, well, when the Vikings are done and the Patriots are done, and these other teams are done, we're going to then start doing this. We interviewed them now. You can't do that. So, a lot of this is not technically legal, but you got to do it. You got to do it. I'm interested in you. It's like fourth grade stuff, the passing notes to each other. I like you. Do you like me? I mean, that's really what it is. And look, could something go awry? Of course it could. There's no negotiation. There's nothing written down, but it won't.
Will this be a good hire, Pat Shurmur?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it's a bad hire. I wrote today in the Post, you can say, you may not be thinking it's the most inspirational hire you've ever seen, but, I find it hard to believe someone's going to say this is an awful hire. He's a very solid football guy. I think personally going offensive guy, if it's the right guy, is the right way to do it, because put it this way, if you hire Matt Patricia, right, if we were talking today that the Giants are going to go for Matt Patricia, what would your first question to me be?
Offensively, what's going on?
Who's his offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Who's he bringing in? What kind of offense is he going to run? So to me, if you hire a defensive guy, you're basically gambling on two guys. This guy to be the head coach, now who's his offensive coordinator? That's huge. Shurmur can find a defensive coordinator. He can just keep Steve Spagnuolo. They worked together for 8 years in Philly. They have a relationship. Or he can find another guy. But this team's offense was the problem the last year. Certainly, they have quarterback. I don't think issues, but they have quarterback scenarios that are fascinating. Eli Manning, Davis Webb. Is it Sam Darnold? Is it Josh Rosen? So they need a guy who they don't need a guy who knows a guy who's a quarterback guy. They need the guy who's the quarterback guy, and Pat Shurmur is certainly that.
Paul Schwartz of the New York Post with us here on Big Board Sports. Paul, last night on the newscast, I said, this is feels like me on a Saturday night. Maybe not your first choice, maybe not your second choice. You almost take whatever you can get. And not that John Mara certainly cares what we think here in Albany, but will Dave Gettleman have to try to sell this hire as like, hey, Pat Shurmur was our guy all along?
Perhaps, but I don't think so. Other outlets were reporting things that I don't think were really right. Okay. I know for a fact some of them weren't right. That this is not the kind of thing. I know that Pat Shurmur, Josh McDaniels, and Matt Patricia were the three guys. After they interviewed six guys, and then they said, okay, let's push these three guys off to the side and move these three guys up. Of that group, I think initially they first thought, well, let's think about Patricia here really hard, but the Giants, I know, thought all along Patricia's going to go to Detroit. So, you can have your first, you say, well, let's make reservations at a restaurant Saturday night. Well, they've been booked up. Okay. Well, it might be your first choice to eat there, but you never were going to eat there. It's booked. Unless you're Roger and you have all these connections. That's different. You just make a phone call. But, for the rest of us, then, that's what you do. You just move on to your second choice. So to say Patricia was the favorite, I don't think that's true. I think they probably discussed him first after this and said, well, it's not going to work. He's going to go to Bob Quinn, the guy he knows so well from New England. And I think McDaniels all along, they kind of thought, we like you, you like us, but there's no love there. We don't think you love us. McDaniels was kind of all over the place. To me, the way I look at it is McDaniels is the greatest boom or bust hire. He might be Belichick 2.0, or he might be a bust because he's just the type A personality that doesn't work. I think Patricia was the most intriguing. I love the RPI, rocket scientist. The hair, the beard, the hat backwards. Very intriguing to me. And I think Shurmur's the safest choice. And I don't, sometimes safe is a good choice.
All right, so now you got the GM in place, you've got the head coach in place, and now they have to figure out what they are going to do with that number 2 pick, Paul.
They do, and I don't think they know yet. I really don't. They have not. They fired Mark Ross, who runs the draft, so now it's Dave Gettleman's draft to run. He's not bringing anybody. Between now and the draft, all the scouts are still there, so the scouts are still doing the job and reporting to Dave Gettleman. I would think it's going to be a quarterback. Unless they grade these guys and say, you know what, Rosen and Darnold are not, they're not the greatest prospects we've seen. They're just the greatest prospects this year. Maybe the kid Allen from Wyoming, do you take him with the second pick? I've heard people say that they think the Browns are going to take him with the first pick. So there's a lot out there. I think, I know, Roger being a Penn State guy, to me, if you draft Barkley, if you say, okay, we're sticking with Eli, we're sticking with Davis Webb, you draft Barkley, you sign in free agency before the draft at 1 or 2 offensive linemen. In the second round, you take an offensive lineman. Now you've got a rebuilt offensive line. Fairly rebuilt, I would think. If you get 2 good guys in there, you can say you can go to war with that offensive line. You have Eli and Davis Webb. You have Barkley. You have Odell Beckham Jr., you have Sterling Shepard, maybe you have Brandon Marshall coming back, you have Evan Ingram. Is that a lot of pieces to work with?
I would love that scenario. The way you just painted that picture, let's go for it right there. I would be all in for that if they are really thinking that Eli has a couple of more years and Davis Webb is going to be their future guy.
Well, you know what? And you also have to look at, at the second pick, you got to draft someone who's going to be great. Now, is Barkley going to be rated higher on the Giants' board than Rosen or Darnold? I think he probably will be. Just pure prospect. This guy, maybe the Giants don't see it that way, but do we see what's happening in Kansas City? Do we see what's happening in New Orleans? How they transformed their team with the running backs? The running backs are coming back. As far as I can tell, the running backs, were kind of like out of vogue. The running backs are coming back in this league, and why not get a guy who might be the next? I don't know what he's going to be the next something really good. How can he miss? I know guys have missed before, but I don't see that guy missing. And they say, well, why are you drafting him with not a good offensive line? You can rebuild an offensive line. You can't find a potential great running back every day.
Paul Schwartz, New York Post, all over it. As always, we appreciate your support here in Albany and obviously our longtime relationship. Paul, keep up the great work. Thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports.
Thanks, guys, and please fix the Great Danes basketball team. You get and Will Brown get together, and I'm sure you guys will figure it out.
We will, and if we need any consulting work, we'll reach out to you.
I come cheap.
Thank you, Paul.